The EV market hits the brakes as sales hit a speed bump. This is Ronald Stein. Ronald is founder of PTS Advance, a big company in the United States, and he is author of several books and articles related to energy. Welcome, Ronald Stein.
Armando, glad to be aboard.
Ronald, please let me start showing two graphs. The first one shows that almost 16% of global car sales were of EVs last year, 2023. It's a big number, it's not a small number. And the second is a forecasting for 2030, saying that 30% of car sales will be EVs. So if you could comment this graph, but adding something for you, can we say that EVs are a preference of for elites, or is a common car for work every day? What's the environment of this situation?
Well, Armando, yes, I think it basically documents that it's for the elites, because what we have seen is today we have like 30 million EVs in the entire world. And we've also seen since the pandemic, a lot of people are not going to work, working virtually. They're not going to work as often, so they're not driving. But with 30 million EVs on the road and all these people not driving to work as often, gasoline consumption is going up. Gasoline consumption hit a peak in 2019, just before the pandemic hit. And gasoline consumption, according to the International Energy Agency, global gasoline consumption in 23 blew past the peak of 2019. So I think it confirms that, yeah, the EV sales have gone up. As I mentioned, the elites have bought them. The elites will continue to buy them, but they're parking them in the garage. They're not using them.
Not for day-to-day to go to work and return.
Exactly. If people, if it's a short drive, they'll use it. But if people want to go somewhere, they use the workhorse vehicle, which is a gasoline car. And so all those EVs that have been sold have had basically no effect on gasoline consumption.
But when we call elites, what do you mean as a person part of the elite?
Well, the elites, they're highly educated, usually 1, maybe 2 degrees, highly competent. They've got multi-car families. They have low mileage requirements for that second car. And most likely they live in a house. Most likely they live in a temperate climate. I know here in the United States, California and Florida have probably the bulk of the EVs. In fact, California has, I think, 6 times as many EVs as Florida. But we're temperate climates, in very cold, very hot climates, they're not as prevalent. So, yeah, the elites are different from the common folk, because the common folk are single car owners. They're not as highly educated, not as highly compensated. Most probably do not live in a house where they can park the car in the garage. And so it's, mandated change to EV ownership and forced austerity on them is facing a rebellion from those that need affordable vehicle transportation.
And Ronald, most American or more Americans are buying used cars instead of new cars. And I'm not sure that CarMax still exists, but I cannot
you're right.
see old EVs car being selling. Where are them?
I haven't seen a used car market for EVs. And so, like I say, the elites have bought them. Most people do not buy new cars. They buy used cars. Used car market is huge. But with no EV used car market, people are buying their gasoline cars.
Yeah, still gasoline cars and diesel cars. No, not for small cars. Small cars only gasoline in the United States or diesel
Yes,
cars
yeah,
for small. Yeah.
yes. But yeah, like I say, we haven't found a way to recycle EVs, and if the EV battery conks out, that's an expensive replacement. And so, yeah, I don't see the EV used market picking up much of the vehicle needs of society.
Yeah. Yeah. Ronald, when we see the global supply chain for EVs, where are located this global supply chain or parts of the supply chain, the upstream part and downstream part of EV cars?
Well, there's two things you want to look at. One is the batteries, who's controlling the batteries, and who's controlling the manufacturing of the entire vehicle. Um, China controls the batteries. I mean, all the lithium and cobalt is pretty much under total control of the Chinese. And there's a lot of lithium and cobalt around the world, but it's under Chinese control. So they're pretty much controlling the construction of the EV battery. And then China is basically doing a lot of the manufacturing of automobiles themselves. So
Mhm.
it's basically most of it's offshore. And the interesting thing is, we have in the United States, we're trying to induce people to buy them. So we have incentives, and the incentives are basically only applicable if you can prove that it's currently made in the United States, the battery. Well, since they're not, there's a clause in this agreement to provide feedback that if you're leasing a car, then you don't have to prove where the battery comes from.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so the only way to take advantage of the $7,500 tax credit for EVs is to lease it, because it doesn't apply if you buy it, because we know where the battery is coming from.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. We have Roberto Domenico. Welcome, Robert. The best way to recycle an EV is in a trash to steam plant. It's funny, funny.
There's a lot of truth in that, because we haven't found a way to recycle wind turbines, haven't found a way to recycle EV batteries. And I see a lot of articles coming in from Australia that, when wind turbines conk out, they just pile them in a toxic waste dump. And I guess the EV is going to be in the same dump.
So, Ronald, do you not see that EV sales are growing or are going slow down? Because the numbers are big. 30% in 2030 is something representative of the
Yes.
total sales. But you see that 30% does not mean anything in terms of the whole situation. Is a segmented portion to elites and not for the world itself.
I think you're seeing that today. Like I say, Volvo's pulling back, Mercedes-Benz is pulling back, Ford's pulling back, Apple's pulling back, Hertz is pulling back, because mandating the change to something that basically only elites can afford is basically hitting the wall. And like I say, the common folk, they're barely trying to survive. Now you're forcing them to buy something that is way beyond their range. They probably can't even qualify for the loan. And so it's, that's why I wrote the article that the EV market is hitting the brakes, because the sales are hitting a speed bump, and it's a big speed bump. Because as I mentioned, I think we're running out of elites that are buying them.
Yeah, but elites do not need subsidies, and subsidies still exist. And if subsidies stop, you see that the EV sales can slow down.
If which stops the subsidies?
Subsidies.
Well, if the subsidies stop, they'll probably slow down a bit, but it's just another enticement for the elites. Like, you're right, they could afford it. Giving them a tax break makes it a little bit more affordable to them. But like I say, you can have to give away the cars to the common folk. And the other thing too is it's only the wealthy countries that are pursuing the switch to EVs because, we got, Armando, we got 8 billion people on this planet. And we know that 80% of them are living on less than $10 a day. Most of the world is in developing, very poor countries. And, they don't have running water or sanitation available to them, and nor any of the products that we enjoy in our daily lives. They would love to, enter the Industrial Revolution, but I think we're making it harder and harder on them to ever do that.
Yeah. What are the thoughts of the International Energy Agency? You see that they are supporting EVs growth.
Well, they're really just reporting. I mean, they reported the fact that fuel consumption has gone beyond the peak from 2019, even with 30 million EVs on the road. I tend to say not on the road, in the garage. And the fact that, we have with technology, we have the opportunity to work virtually. And so a good number of people were, instead of going to work, physically going to work 5 days a week, they're going to work, 2 or 3 days a week, and sometimes not at all. So they're not driving as much. But the fact that the fuel consumption has gone past the 2019 peak shows that, people are buying cars, but they're buying more gasoline cars than EVs, or they're using gasoline cars.
Yeah. There are other associations. United States, there is one as a EIA, is an energy.
The EIA, Energy
Yeah,
Administration, yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's a
Yes.
serious agency or entity. What
Right.
do you know? What are they saying about this?
Well, they're just reporting. They're just reporting the data. It's the policymakers who are setting the policy, and all the agencies, they just report. But the ones who are on the front line, that's the automobile makers. And they're seeing, the new cars building up on new car lots because they're not selling. And so everybody's just, take a look. I wrote an article, I think, last year that the auto industry has been mandated into a death spiral because there's not enough buyers out there. There's not enough lithium and cobalt in the world to build that many batteries. I mean, these batteries are huge. The Tesla has 1,000-pound battery, and to get all the minerals and metals to make that battery, you got to move like 500,000 pounds of earth to get all the different metals. And then in California, we want the 18-wheeler trucks to go EV. Well, those guys require a 16,000-pound battery. And to make that battery, you got to move 8 million pounds of earth around the world to get one battery. And it's they're fighting back. The trucking industry is resisting it, and it's going to drive a lot of independents out of business.
You mentioned that several companies are returning, suspending the participation of EV manufacturing, like Apple, Ford, and others.
Yeah.
But it still remains BYD, Tesla. BYD and Tesla they are competitors. Do you see that's a real competition, or is a more subsidies competition?
It's going to hurt everybody. With Tesla having a big share of the market, their sales will go down, but they'll still be making money because they're the leader in the industry. Everybody else is really trying to take market share away from Tesla, and they're finding out Tesla's got a huge start into the elites, and since we've run out of elites, I think Volvo is having a hard time, and Mercedes-Benz and Ford and Apple and Hertz, and it's beginning to face the reality. Inflation is devastating on everybody, and a car is kind of like almost a luxury item. You need it, but you don't need to buy an expensive one. You want to buy an inexpensive one. and there is no inexpensive EVs to buy.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, who is with us? The famous Stuart Turley, our guru, my
Oh,
guru.
Stu Turley.
Yeah, hi, Stuart. Do you believe, Ronald, that batteries can become smaller with research and development, or is no chance to be something better than today?
Everything can get smaller, with enough research and development. I, as an engineer, I personally thought the hybrid was a fantastic way to transition into a more efficient running automobile, because the hybrid with the gasoline engine charging the battery, many things. You don't need as big a battery, and by going to a hybrid, you pretty much like double your gas mileage doing nothing, and you buy hundreds of years to develop the battery technology. And it's really strange because the auto industry has been mandated so strongly to reduce their emissions for their entire fleet. The only way to meet that low emission level for all the cars they're making is they had to eliminate the gasoline engine and the hybrid. So most manufacturers used to make a hybrid, and now they're basically making only electric vehicles, 100%
Mhm.
EVs. You'll see a couple of hybrids out there if it meets the calculation of the entire fleet. But yeah, I thought that would be a great transition. You have a smaller battery, and like you say, you can increase the mileage and
Yeah.
reduce emissions, and it was just a win-win situation.
Ronald, every day we see news in newspapers and headlines about new elements to construct a battery, different ones. I don't know exactly what are them, but do you see a chance to replace lithium easily for a battery?
I don't in the short term, obviously. The toughest part about coming up with a method to get a car to move is, can you commercialize that idea? We've talked before, like you can run a car on French fry grease. The challenge is you can't commercialize it because there aren't enough people eating French fries to generate that much grease. So,
Uh-huh.
but that's the challenge is, and there's no silver bullet answer. You got hydrogen, you got biofuels, and but we got billions of vehicles in the entire world, and to do a one-off, that's achievable. To commercialize it and get Volvo and Mercedes and Ford and all the other manufacturers to go into a production line, that's a challenge. To commercialization, that changes the game.
Yeah.
But with research and development, we'll come up with a multitude of ways to propel the vehicle. But to do it on a commercial basis, that's a real challenge.
How do you see the combination of hydrogen and electric cars?
Same thing. Hydrogen is, right now it's very expensive to make, and I see it's a great tool for driving a vehicle, but can you commercialize it? I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure it's a
Because it's
commercializable.
expensive
Yeah,
and safety issues, of course.
the safety
Safety.
issues. Yes. Well, of course, you have the safety issues with the EVs that also ignite by themselves. And the tough part about an EV battery, when it ignites, it's a chemical fire, and you can't put it out. All you can do is cool it, and so it takes a lot of water to cool it down, and that's a big challenge. So like I say, there's a lot of challenges to society, but I think the fact that we've mandated people to go to EVs, that's starting to hit a brick wall.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Ronald, in logistics, there are more equipment to make movements like jets, tanks, ships, and so impossible to apply electrical system, these ones, or
Right, you're
most.
right. Our transportation system includes cars, trucks, ships, planes, and everybody's focusing on EVs, and EVs are going to get rid of fossil fuels.
Mhm.
But there's nowhere in the subject matter about how do you keep 50,000 merchant ships moving? How do you keep the 20,000 commercial aircraft moving? And you got 50,000, military jets.
Yeah.
How do you keep them moving? And so, if you get rid of oil, that's it's not going to, the EV is not going to get rid of oil. In fact, it's all the components from oil that have made everything we have today. It's the reason we have merchant ships, the reason we have jets. When you take a look at it, all the electrical generating systems from coal, natural gas, hydro, nuclear, wind, solar, every electrical generating system cannot exist without the components they get that are made from fossil fuels. Because you get rid of fossil fuels, you're going to get rid of wind and solar and EVs. I mean, EVs are 100% made with oil. There's billions of tires in the world. Wind turbines can't make any tires. Solar panels can't make any tires. And like you say, we're going to be back to the 18th century. Because 18th century, there were two things. There was no oil and there was no electricity because oil came before electricity.
And Ronald, you mentioned something very interesting because jets, ships, tanks, and aircraft, they cannot charge during the flight or the trip. So only cars inside the city can have let's say a grid system to recharge batteries. This
You're
all
right. You're
other
right. Yeah, the jets flying from LAX to Australia, I'm not sure there's any charging stations along the way. That 14-hour
I
flight.
suppose there is no one. That's right.
Plus, when you take a look at the size of airplanes today, they're huge. You basically board the plane. You never take a step back and you're able to look up at the plane and say, "My God, that's so big! We can get this off the ground." But yeah, and just like the 18-wheelers, having a 16,000-pound battery,
Oh,
and then you have limited range, and then you got to go through the charging requirements, and it's a commercialization of this concept is not working, and I think the public is financially fighting back by not buying them, and that's why you see them, building up on the dealer lots, and it's everybody's reevaluating their program, and I think the feds are doing the same thing. Is it really right to mandate this change? Because that's going to be devastating to society if people can't move around. It's great they can work virtually, but eventually they got to go shopping for groceries, and if they have no vehicles, it's going to be tough.
yeah. SRB is a frequent participant of our podcasts. Uh, the fundamental problem with traction batteries is that their energy density is around 0.5 millijoules by kilograms, whereas HC fuels are 40 millijoules. This is a difference, a big difference. The density, energy density. What do you see in this?
Well, that's
race?
reflected in the range of vehicles because there's so much energy you can store in that battery. And if you're going to go so far, then you got to recharge to go to the next location. And where the fuel, I mean, you could load up your car with 15 gallons of fuel and probably go 400 miles. You can't do that in an EV. So
Mhm.
you have more energy density within the fossil fuels arena. And, we've been trying for 200 years to replace fossil fuels, and I'm all for replacing it. I'm not for fossil fuels. I'm for the products we get from fossil fuels. And those products are being enjoyed by I want to say the 2 billion people in the wealthier countries, the 6 billion in the poor developing countries. We mentioned they have no water, no sanitation system, no hospitals, no airports. Yeah, they're basically trying to join the Industrial Revolution, and I think we would like them to, but we're making it so tough on the people in the wealthy countries to survive this economic pressure that I don't know. It's going to be a tough road.
Yeah, yeah. Do you see a possibility of Russia or Ukraine use electric vehicles in the war?
and where are the charging stations?
Totally impossible. So it's a revolution. The numbers are big, but as you said, the representation, the proportion of gasoline cars and the total logistic systems is still very small.
Right. Well, as I've mentioned before, I know a lot of people that have EVs, and they fit that category. They're low mileage users of that EV. And I think you can do the same thing when you see someone driving an EV. They're probably driving it locally, not a distance. And, you can play with numbers. Like I say, the sales are going through the roof, but it's having almost no effect on gasoline usage
Yeah.
because they're not the workhorse vehicles.
That's right. I have a proposal for the conclusion.
Okay.
I need your help. I'm in doubt. I would like to receive from you some kind of advice with a purchase that I'm planning to do. Is the following. I'm in doubt to buy a Tesla Model S Plaid 3, $100,000, or a BYD premium EV. What do you advise to me to buy? Which one?
Well, let me tell you a quick story about EVs. Because I qualify as one of the elites to buy an EV. Highly educated, high income, multi-car family, low mileage requirements. And so I was driving a car that was on lease, and I was driving a SL Mercedes, two-door convertible. And it was hard to get into and hard to get out of. And so my wife says, let's go back to a sedan. And so qualifying as an EV owner, I went online to look at the four-door E350 Mercedes, four-door sedan. And EV version stickered out at $110,000. I said, my God, holy mackerel. So I looked at the same four-door sedan in the gasoline version. It was $50,000 less. And so me being an engineer, I'm driving this SL. And so I penciled out, if I keep it for 3 years, for the mileage that I would drive in 3 years and the cost of fuel in California,
Yeah.
over a 3-year period, it would cost me $50,000. I mean, yeah. And so I was talking to it would cost me $5,000. $5,000 in fuel over a 3-year period to keep that SL on a 3-year lease. So I was talking to my personal trainer. I said, Tony, should I spend an extra $50,000 to buy my EV so I could save $5,000 in fuel? He said, Ron, you buy that EV, I'm going to kick your butt.
So so the price are higher than gasoline cars and do not compensate the fuel cost that you have for 3
Exactly.
years.
Yeah. Like I say, it was a $50,000 addition to go from a four-door gas version to a four-door EV version. And, since most people are living paycheck to paycheck, that's, like I say, it's an elite decision. Elites can make that decision. Common folks
there
can't.
is subsidies are $7,000 for
$7,500. And that's only if you lease it. Yeah, if you lease it. Because it doesn't qualify because you can't confirm that the battery was built in America.
Who are paying this money?
Me, the taxpayer. I want to say the government, but the government gets their money from me, you
Sure,
know, and
sure,
people like me.
sure, sure. Thank you so much, Ronald Stein.
It's
Nice
a,
conversation about EVs. I'm thinking to go to a dealer now and buy an EV for me.
let me know. I know it'll be parked in the garage.
Have a fantastic day.
Same to you,
Thank
Armando.
you.
Okay,
Thank
take
you.
care.
Bye bye.